What is the best pricing strategy for someone who's increasing their pricing, the percentage or flat rate strategy? This question it kind of tickles a little bit on one of my pet peeves. Another one, a lot of people say that percentage-based pricing is the only way to grow your business. I say that you need to have a very solid strategy for percentage-based pricing, because what most people are trying to do is saying, hey, what's your event budget? And then someone says, oh yeah, I'm gonna have, my wedding's gonna be $40,000. So you say, okay, I charge 10%, which means that your price is gonna be, your bill is gonna be 4,000. First of all, a lot of people, that already confuses them, because they're like, how come I have to pay you more just because I'm spending more on the event, right? So some people are not going to buy just for that unless you have a really good answer for that question, right? The second thing that makes that confusing is, and follow me because I'm going to explain it in full, because I'm not saying percentage based is bad. It's just a very specific way you got to do it. The second thing that can make that confusing is that if you ever planned a wedding, you know that what the budget was at the beginning is very rarely the budget at the end. So what happens when someone comes in and says, hey, I'm going to plan this wedding for 40K, and 2 months later, now the budget is 60K. Do you send them an updated bill for 6,000 and then say, hey, since your budget went up, I just want to send you your updated bill? And do you think that that's going to increase trust, or do you think that that's going to make them be like, well, I don't understand, just because I decided to pick a more expensive venue, why am I paying her more? Or I don't understand, just because I went with a more expensive photographer, why am I paying her more? Right? Because it's the same amount of work. What if they decide to go off, and I'm just asking questions because a lot of times people throw out this whole percentage-based pricing thing without giving you any clarity or strategy on how you can actually accomplish this. What if somebody comes to you and their budget is $20,000? So then now you have to accept 2,000 for full planning because they have a lower budget? Because here's the thing, really, events with really tight budgets are more difficult to plan than events with budget. It's just harder because they don't, it's like, or someone's like, oh, 15K. So now you're gonna, and like every meeting is about how to bring down the budget, and you're being paid less for it. My point is that percentage-based pricing, in my opinion, is only reserved for two scenarios. Number one, if you're already attracting clients who have at least a budget of 100K for the wedding. Number two, you are paying the vendors. So they pay you, you pay everybody else. Because otherwise you're gonna, every month you're sending an updated invoice because, oh, the budget went up, so here's a new invoice. Oh, budget went down, here's a new invoice. And it's like, after a while, it's like, why do I keep sending these updated invoices back and forth? Just because of their choices, just because they decided to go with filet mignon instead of ribeye, and it's more effort on your end from, just on that point. To me, I believe that you should be attracting clients with at least 100K budget, and you should be paying all the vendors directly, because then at that point, all you're doing is presenting to the client, hey, this is your updated total budget, right? Because now we've decided we're going to increase, hey, you want to add this thing? Cool. You go back and calculate based off of my calculations. This is the new budget. Yes, your price went up, right? But you're not giving them a new invoice every day. It's almost like sticking in a sword. You just keep turning it because it's like, oh yeah, you got more money to spend, so now I need more. It to me, I think that for most people, they're not going to digest that very well. But if you tell them, hey, for us, we charge, our standard rate is 10%, right? Most people, especially celebrity planners, it goes up to like 18%, even sometimes 20% of the budget, right? Is what they're charging. But they're literally, you're being paid for the overhead, because if you're the one, to me, I agree with that method, because if at that point, like, you're making at least like maybe 10, 18K, but at the same time, the client doesn't have to do almost anything. They don't have to talk to the photographer. They don't have to sign a contract. They don't have to remember to increase the hours. They don't, like, all the little things that you have to send clients to do. Oh, you forgot, you got to send this payment. You do it for them, and you're being paid premium to make their lives easier, right? But because they can afford it. This doesn't make sense when you're working with that person with a 40K budget and you're doing all this back and forth for them to be making like 3,500, right? And and they every little thing is like, oh, $100 here is like so offensive to them because the budget's tight. So the fact that your amount keeps going up is something that they keep prodding at, So for me, that's just my 2 cents. Percentage-based pricing is excellent. But you got to get to a certain place in your business first before that's really going to make sense, right? What I would recommend, and I mean, I've had clients who I've worked with, people who've come to our events, everything. They have built very profitable businesses while still having a day job, while having flat rate pricing, just by having straightforward pricing. One of our clients like made over 110K last year, right? I think it was over maybe around 115K last year. Again, mother has a small child, has a job, everything, right? But she's charged flat rate. And the thing is that flat rate is straightforward. And the reason I started with all these questions of what happens if the budget goes up, do you send another bill, do this and that, is that a confused mind will always say no. So if you tell somebody, oh yeah, because this is your budget, this is your price, and you keep going back and forth and changing the pricing, but you can't explain to them why, and they're confused, they're gonna say no. They're gonna generally say no before they buy from you and not buy from you. And they're probably going to argue after they're your client, right? And say no to price increases, right? So even though it's something you discussed at the beginning, so to me, I like practical things, and I think we have to all be realistic about where we are in our businesses, because again, there are people out here who are charging flat rate, and they're charging 10K, 12K, 15K flat rate, right? So if you're not, to me, if you're not attracting those six-figure weddings yet, you're not attracting, budget is still an issue for your clients generally. I just think that wisdom is so important, and wisdom is situational. So it depends on the type of people you're attracting, the type of people you're working with. So I see a lot of people in the chat saying that makes a lot of sense. Very well said. So I hope that's helpful for everybody. I think it's all about your approach and your unique situation. All right.